I think what's at stake for LGBTQ people themselves is really just to have the right to live their lives with dignity, with security. In 2009, my husband and I got married in South Africa. And South Africa is famously the 5th country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. And we didn't get married because we'd been together for 18 years. We didn't get married because, we thought our lives, we'd love each other more if we were married. We got married because he got a job with the United Nations. And if I wanted to go with him, I needed to get married to him. And luckily, I come from a country where that was possible. So I thought about, what if I came from a country where it wasn't possible? Then very soon after we got married, I read about a case in a country close to South Africa called Malawi, where a couple held a public engagement ceremony. And as a result of this public engagement ceremony, they were all over the newspapers, and they were arrested and subject to a humiliating trial according to the old colonial laws of unnatural offenses. And I thought about what I got for trying to get married, for getting married, which is a ticket to Paris, and what they got, which is this terrible prison sentence. And then when they were released after this huge international campaign, one of them got exile as an LGBT exile refugee in South Africa. And it occurred to me that she was transgender. As she crossed the line from Malawi to South Africa, she was crossing something of a pink line. And that's where the idea came to me. And I decided I wanted to investigate this more globally. I set out to try and understand this new global conversation about sexuality and gender identity, which was happening all over the world, from Mexico here to South Africa, where I live. And I wanted to understand what the consequences of this conversation were. And one of the things that became very clear to me was that there was a new, I call it pink line, that was describing, defining, and dividing the world in ways that were really quite unimaginable to me when I came out of the closet in the 1980s. And on one side of this pink line are communities or countries or societies that are increasingly accepting and understanding that LGBTQ people have full human rights too. On the other side of this pink line are those who, in reaction to that, are becoming even more homophobic and even more transphobic as a reaction to what they see as some kind of globalizing, decadent, immoral movement. There is this attempt by patriarchs and priests and sometimes presidents to find ways of carrying on to control people, of carrying on to exert influence on people. And one of the ways this is done is to find an evil, to construct an evil that we need to defend our civilization against. But it's often done for very strategic reasons. It's done because the religious right wing knows that they can exploit people's fear of the unknown and that they can use the biblical texts to do so. I want everybody to read this book. It's obviously interesting and powerful to members of the LGBTQ community themselves. And I want those readers to understand that there is just not one way to be gay in the world. There's a sort of model of what it means to be gay that comes sort of from Hollywood, from the American gay rights movement, Christopher Street parades, blah, 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 that is just one model. But I didn't write it just for LGBTQ people. I really want it to be read by anybody who's interested in understanding what sexual orientation and gender identity means. These have been concepts that have made it into the public domain recently. And there's a lot of confusion about it. You know, particularly as young people sort of come out and begin to declare themselves to be non-binary, as the alphabet proliferates. And really what I hope is that this book helps explain not just the politics of gender and the politics of sexual orientation, but the way these politics have been used and abused geopolitically in broader political battles in our time. And people love stories, and people respond to stories. And I've seen in my own work how much more powerful it is to kind of get people to see, readers to see, or even to change their minds by presenting them with a story of a human being, and of allowing that human being to become some sort of protagonist that the reader can identify with, right? So suddenly you're not thinking about an LGBT person as like a poor victim who needs to be saved, or as some evil foreign agent. So that's the power. The risk is that to tell stories, we use the tools of fiction, right? That's how we know how to tell stories. So we use the tools of fiction. So we create, I know when I write, I create a character and I want my character to be three-dimensional. And the character needs to go through some sort of narrative arc so that there's drama, so that you, the reader, keep on turning the pages. And the risk is to over-dramatize, to make the story more attractive, maybe more sensational, so that the reader will keep on reading. And in so doing, you do exactly the opposite of what you were setting out to do, which is to allow the reader to experience the person in real life who you are writing about and their experiences.